Hello, and welcome to this episode of Growth from Grief. Before we dive into the episode, I wanted to talk about something that's happened to me this week. So, normally I would upload these episodes on Wednesday, and I'm recording this on Sunday, October 6th. So, I would have already recorded this and uploaded it on the 2nd, but we had some health issues this week in our family. And, that required changing what was going on during the week and focusing on what was important. So just letting go of all the things that I had to let go of, teaching my classes, recording my podcast, emails, whatever that was for me, and focusing on um, this health issue for our family. And so here I am now. I'm recording this podcast for you. And I want to mention that if you're finding yourself in a similar situation where something happens out of the blue and you have to shift, go with it. Don't try to fight it. It's so much easier. You will be able to get back to whatever was important to you prior to this issue, but just let it go and practice a breathing exercise so you can get out of your head and relax. So, without further ado, let's start this episode. So, welcome. Sue Andersen here. Today, we're diving into a topic that has been a profound part of my own healing journey, and this is yoga, and specifically yoga for grief, right? How I practiced yoga to help me during my grief journey and still practice, right? So, you might not be familiar with yoga. You may think about yoga as only physical postures, different poses and shapes that you see people in on Instagram and Facebook and, these perfect bodies. And, this is not what yoga is all about. And I'd like to take some time here to explore how this ancient practice can help us navigate through the dark times of loss. Yoga has been around for thousands of years, originating in India and practiced by these yogis that were trying to attain this highest state of being, right? Kind of out of their body and focused only on their mind in meditation. And so they used physical practices to help them achieve these states of bliss. Yoga, the word itself, means union or yoke. So this is about bringing the mind, the body, and the breath together as one. Now, while modern yoga here in the West is focused a lot more on the physical practice, yoga includes 8 different branches, 3 of which are the physical, meditation, and breath work. And so we're going to talk about how those 3 aspects of yoga can help during your healing process from grief. So think about grief, your own loss, and how it has impacted every aspect of your being, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? It's just completely consuming, especially the first few months, the first year or two. And after my son died, I really felt disconnected from my body, from the world, right? I just had thoughts spinning around in my head. I couldn't breathe. I just felt like um, yeah, I was consumed by grief. It was consuming. And yoga really began to call me back to myself. And I want to take a moment here and just say that if you are struggling with grief emotions and you're finding it difficult to release and relieve some of these emotions, I want to encourage you to check out some of the resources that I have on my YouTube channel. So I have a number of different breath practices, some physical practices that you can, go and try. Some of them are 5 minutes, some of them a little bit longer, and just check them out. Or check out my blog posts or other podcasts, which have links to specific types of poses that might help you. So let's talk a little bit about how this feeling completely consumed by grief, how these different aspects of yoga can help release some of that. So this is actually proven, and I've talked about it before, that there's scientific evidence that these practices, these mindfulness practices, meditation, breath work, yoga postures can help um, release some of these grief symptoms. Dr. Timothy McCall, who's a physician and yoga therapist, compiled a list of 117 conditions that yoga can help alleviate. Many of these conditions are related to grief, like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and stress. When I took my first yoga class after Ian died, I really didn't have any idea what to expect. I mean, I had practiced breath work, but that was pretty much it. And, I really noticed a shift. I really noticed a shift in my body. I could feel a different energy going on. So I felt less anxious. And that feeling encouraged me to keep going, right? I was like, wow, I want more of this. In her book, Yoga for Grief and Loss, Carla Helbert writes, grief impacts every aspect of our being. It affects us physically, mentally, cognitively, emotionally, spiritually, and philosophically in every aspect of mind, body, and spirit. Yoga addresses all of these layers. It is a self-care practice, but it's also a way to integrate the experience of loss. When I first started yoga, I was drawn to the physical movements. So I really, really felt like I needed to move my body and just get some of this emotion out of my body. And, I didn't really know that yoga was going to help me at the time. And also, I was practicing different types of yoga, 4 different types of yoga, actually, in terms of physical yoga. That also, all of these practices incorporate breath work and incorporate meditation, but at different levels, right? So if you're in a meditation practice, you're obviously doing more meditation. Or if you're in a yin yoga practice, so more relaxing practice. But I was really drawn to those physical movements because I knew I had to get some of this stuff out of my body. Um, I talk about how I had this cloud in my chest. I couldn't breathe. And the physical movement, the breath work that really helped me be able to fully breathe and relax and let go. So, we're never getting rid of grief. We're not getting over grief, but yoga helped me to find a way to move through it, to carry it differently. It was really important for me to do that. So I want to take a moment and just talk about different types of yoga and how they might help you. So there are various types. Some you might have practiced or heard about. Hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is a combination of breath, movement, and meditation, balancing between physical exertion and relaxation. But it's generally not going to be fast movement, which is where you would see a vinyasa class, where you're connecting. The flow of the movement is connected with the flow of the breath. And that really helps kind of distract the mind from stress, right? Because you're really trying to get your body and mind in a state of balance here. So that's another kind of yoga. Then we have restorative. Restorative is a practice that involves long holds of passive postures. Usually you're using props, and those props help you get into really a deep relaxation. This type of practice can really help you reduce stress and anxiety. So that's something to think about. Along with that is yin yoga. Yin yoga is one of my favorite practices. It's also passive, but it focuses on deep stretching and long holds. So although you're not moving and connecting poses to poses, you are still getting into a particular shape and targeting connective tissues and just encouraging more of a meditative state or a mindfulness, um, promoting stillness. And by the way, I practiced yin yoga. My mind was not still in the beginning. I was still so consumed by thoughts of my son and his death. And, that was okay because all of these different practices really helped me release, right? So you can be in a yoga class and just start crying, right? I mean, you're releasing emotion. And that is not unusual. And guess what? People are not shocked by that if they've been practicing for a while because they've probably experienced it themselves. The last type of yoga I wanted to talk about is yoga nidra. So yoga nidra is a guided relaxation practice. Sometimes it's referred to as yoga sleep. And it also helps reduce symptoms of anxiety, PTSD, insomnia. Again, these are practices to try. And in terms of the physical practice, there's all kinds of, Iyengar, Ashtanga. There's different lineages of yoga that you can consider trying and just see what works right for you. What do you need? What does your heart need? What does your body need right now? So my practice evolved over time. I needed physical movement. That was so important to me. The breath with the body, that really helped me connect myself more to my body, reconnect myself to myself. But I gradually really craved the meditation aspects, the meditative aspects, allowing me to sit with these emotions and let them go, right? Find a practice that would help me Sit with them, but let them go. You know, periodically people ask me, you know, what is my daily yoga practice? As a yoga teacher, what is my daily yoga practice? And I have to say, my daily yoga practice has changed a lot over time. So my practice a few years back was more physical. You know, so I wanted to do an actual yoga practice, whether I did it in person or I did my own practice or I did something online with a yoga teacher that I liked online. You know, that was another um, aspect of physical practice, not counting my teaching. So this was just my practice for me. But also, my daily practice switched to meditation for a while. So I was doing a morning meditation. And I did that for a long time. That was my yoga practice. That was my personal practice. Nowadays, my practice is a mindfulness practice. And I've talked about that in other episodes. One of my new favorites is the Four Pebbles. And I'll link to that in the show notes. But, you know, that is something I really enjoy doing. And in times like this, in times of stress, in times when your week just goes wonky, you can practice it anywhere. So that's something that's really important. So I wanted to encourage you to think about what might work for you in terms of yoga. You know, there's a lot of scientific evidence that you can find out there, and I'll link to some studies about how the physical practice helps, or the meditation and mindfulness practice helps. But you know, they all help with reducing aspects of grief, the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the physical pain in the body, just getting that moving out. It's so, so, so important. If you are looking for something to do now, you may be interested in my 5 weeks to grief relief program. It's an online yoga for grief program beginning October 24th, 2024. And that is a program where we focus on a different practice each week. The live classes are 75 minutes. We have discussion. We have a physical practice, maybe a ritual or a meditation. And prior to each class, I provide you with a workbook, some self-study, and then after each class, likewise, another practice. And of course, all of these live classes are recorded, so if you can't make it live, then you're able to attend. So I invite you to take a look at that on my website, sueandersonyoga.com. And also note that the registration closes on October 18th, 2024. If you are listening to this podcast after October 24th, 2024, I encourage you to go to that same page and just join the wait list. So one more thing just to close here. Yoga is not about achieving the perfect pose. It's not about, you know, competing with yourself or others. It's a practice that meets you exactly where you are. It offers a way to connect with your breath, your body, your grief. It's not about fixing. It's not about fixing what's broken, but rather about finding ways to hold your grief with compassion, to allow space for healing, and to honor your loved one, or whatever your loss may be, to honor and integrate as you move through life. Grief can be heavy at times. Yoga can help lighten the load, even if it's just for a moment. If you have enjoyed this podcast, I would truly appreciate you leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help others who are experiencing grief find relief and growth. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'll see you next time.